Police officer targets black Harvard attorney at yacht club, career-ending mistake. The sun hung low over the glittering waters of Harborview Yacht Club, painting the masts of multi-million-dollar sailboats in shades of molten gold. It was a Saturday in late summer, the kind of day that drew the elite like moths to a flame, old money mingling with new, champagne flutes clinking against crystal, laughter drifting across the polished teak decks. The club, perched on the edge of a pristine coastal inlet, was more than a marina. It was a fortress of privilege, where membership required not just wealth but generations of the right connections. 17 minutes earlier, a 911 call had shattered the calm. Dispatch, this is Officer Harlan Crow, badge 478. I've got a suspicious individual on the docks at Harborview Yacht Club. Black male, mid-50s, well-dressed but acting erratic. Possible trespasser or theft in progress. He's near a large yacht, looks like the Serendipity. Requesting backup. The voice on the radio was calm, almost bored, the way officers sometimes sounded when they already had their minds made up. No one at dispatch questioned it. Why would they? Harborview wasn't the kind of place where suspicious usually meant anything good for outsiders. On the dock, Dr. Marcus Reed stood barefoot in linen shorts and a crisp white polo, a half-empty bottle of chilled Sancerre dangling from one hand. His other arm wrapped loosely around his wife, Elena, who leaned against him laughing at something he just whispered. Their 7-year-old daughter, Maya, sat cross-legged nearby, sketching the boats with colored pencils, her sundress fluttering in the breeze. Marcus had been a member here for 8 years, ever since he'd closed his first 8-figure merger for a tech unicorn and decided he deserved a place to unwind that didn't involve depositions or courtrooms. Harvard Law, class of '04. Constitutional scholar. Partner at one of the most prestigious firms on the East Coast. Recipient of awards for pro bono work defending civil rights cases across 3 states. And yes, black. In a club where the membership rolls read like a who's who of faded Anglo-Saxon surnames, that last detail still turned heads, though most members had long since learned to hide their surprise behind polite smiles. Marcus didn't notice the patrol car pull up at first. He was too busy pointing out the lines of a classic Hinckley to Maya, explaining how the hull cut through waves like a knife through silk. But Elena saw it, the cruiser rolling slowly along the access road, lights off but engine growling low. She nudged him gently. Love, incoming. Marcus turned, eyebrows raised in mild curiosity. The officer who stepped out was tall, broad-shouldered, late 40s, with the kind of weathered face that spoke of too many night shifts and not enough trust. Officer Harlan Crow. His hand rested casually on his holster as he approached, boots thudding against the weathered planks. Evening, Crow said, voice flat. His eyes flicked over Marcus, then Elena, then the little girl, before settling back on Marcus like a laser sight. You the owner of that vessel there? The Serendipity? Marcus smiled easily, the same disarming smile he'd used to win over skeptical juries. No, officer. That's my friend David's boat. I'm just here enjoying the sunset with my family. Marcus Reed. He extended his free hand. Crow didn't take it. Instead, he stepped closer, boots stopping inches from Marcus's bare feet. We got a call about a suspicious person on the docks. Matching your description. Mind telling me what you're doing here? Elena's grip tightened on Marcus's arm. Maya looked up from her drawing, sensing the shift in the air. I'm a member, Marcus said calmly. Dock slip 42, Aguirre's Wake. Been here since 2018. Happy to show you my card, or we can call the club manager. I didn't ask for your life story, Crow interrupted. I asked what you're doing on this dock. This area's for owners and guests only. You look like you're wandering. Marcus's smile didn't falter, but something hardened in his eyes. I'm not wandering, officer. I'm standing on private property I have every right to be on, with my wife and daughter. If there's a misunderstanding. Crow cut him off again. Hands where I can see them. Step away from the woman and child. The words landed like a slap. Elena gasped softly. Maya dropped her pencil. Officer, Marcus said, voice still measured but now edged with steel, there's no need for that. I'm complying. But I'd like to know the basis for hands. Crow barked, louder this time. His hand moved to the cuffs on his belt. What happened next unfolded in seconds that would be replayed in courtrooms, news segments, and whispered conversations for years. Marcus raised both hands slowly, palms out. I'm reaching for my wallet to show ID and membership. Don't move for your pockets. Crow snapped. In one fluid motion born of training and, many would later argue, prejudice, he lunged forward, grabbed Marcus's wrist, and twisted it behind his back. The wine bottle slipped from Marcus's other hand, shattering on the dock in a spray of glass and Sauvignon Blanc. Daddy! Maya cried. Elena stepped forward instinctively. Stop! He's a lawyer, he's... Crow ignored her, forcing Marcus down to his knees. You're under arrest for trespassing and resisting. Marcus didn't resist. He never did. But the cold steel of the cuffs biting into his wrists, the rough dock against his knees, the horrified stares from club members gathering at the rails of nearby yachts, it all burned into memory like acid. 17 minutes from the 911 call to this moment. 17 minutes for a Harvard-trained attorney, a man who'd argued before federal appeals courts and lectured at Ivy League symposiums on police accountability, to find himself handcuffed on a yacht club dock in front of his family. And Officer Harlan Crow? He still hadn't asked for ID. He still hadn't run the plates on Aguirre's wake. He still hadn't bothered to check the membership roster blinking on the tablet of the club concierge rushing toward them. Because in Crow's mind, the story was already written, black man in a nice place. Must be trouble. He had no idea the next 17 minutes, and the months that followed, would end his career in ways he could never have imagined. The club concierge, a wiry man in his late 50s named Reginald Reggie Pembroke, arrived at a near sprint, his club blazer flapping like a distressed flag. He had been alerted by 3 separate members who'd already started filming from their decks, smartphones held high, lenses trained on the scene like weapons. Officer! Officer Crow! Reggie called, voice cracking with the strain of trying to sound authoritative while terrified. There's been a terrible mistake. Dr. Reed is a full member, platinum level. He's on slip 42 for 8 years. I can pull the records right now. Crow didn't look away from Marcus, who remained kneeling, wrists cuffed behind him, face calm but jaw tight. A thin line of blood trickled from where the cuff had pinched skin against bone. I don't need your membership list, Crow said without turning. I've got probable cause for trespass and resisting. He refused to show ID when ordered. Marcus spoke then, voice low and deliberate, the same tone he used when cross-examining hostile witnesses. I was reaching for my wallet to provide exactly that identification when you placed me in custody, officer. There is audio and video recording of the entire interaction from at least 4 angles already, including the club's security cameras. He nodded toward the small dome camera mounted on the nearest light pole. And from multiple private phones. I suggest you radio your sergeant before this escalates further. For the first time, something flickered across Crow's face, uncertainty, maybe, or the first cold whisper of self-preservation. But he doubled down. You don't tell me how to do my job. Reggie, now practically vibrating, held up his tablet. I have his photo ID right here, officer. Marcus T. Reed, date of birth March 12, 1979. Home address in. Step back, sir, Crow snapped. Interfering with an arrest is a misdemeanor. Elena, who until that moment had been frozen in protective fury beside Maya, stepped forward. Her voice was quiet but carried the unmistakable weight of someone who had once clerked for a federal judge. Officer Crow, my husband is cooperating fully. He has not resisted. You have no legal basis to keep him restrained once his identity and lawful presence are confirmed. If you continue this detention without probable cause, you are exposing yourself, and your department, to liability under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 for false arrest, unlawful detention, and potentially excessive force. I am recording this interaction as well. She raised her phone, steady as stone. Crow's eyes flicked to her phone, then to the gathering crowd. At least a dozen club members now lined the rails, some still holding champagne flutes, others openly filming. A woman in a wide-brimmed sun hat was already live-streaming to Instagram, narrating in a stage whisper, "This is unreal. They're arresting Marcus Reed, like, the Marcus Reed, on his own dock." Maya began to cry in earnest, small hiccuping sobs. Elena knelt beside her without lowering the phone. "Baby, it's okay. Daddy's okay. We're just having a little talk with the policeman." Marcus looked at his daughter, and for the first time his composure cracked, just a fraction. "Maya, sweetheart, look at me. I'm fine. This is going to be over soon." Crow hesitated. The moment stretched, brittle and dangerous. Then the radio on his shoulder crackled. "Crow, this is Sergeant Mallory. We're getting flooded with calls, multiple council members, the mayor's office, even the damn governor's chief of staff. What the hell is going on down there?" Crow's jaw worked. He thumbed the mic. "I've got a suspect in custody for trespass and resisting, Sarge. Situation under control." A pause. Then Mallory's voice, lower, angrier. "Uncuff him, Harlan. Now. I just got off with the chief. The man you've got on his knees is Marcus goddamn Reed. Harvard Law. Personal counsel to 2 senators. And about 30 seconds away from owning this entire department if you don't stand him down." Crow's face drained of color. Marcus didn't move, didn't gloat. He simply waited. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only 8 seconds, Crow reached down, unlocked the cuffs, and stepped back. Marcus rose slowly, rolling his shoulders once, rubbing his wrists where the metal had left deep red welts. He didn't rub them dramatically for the cameras. He didn't need to. Elena lowered her phone but kept recording. Marcus looked directly at Crow. "Officer, I'm going to ask you one question, and I'd like an honest answer. Did you run my name, my vehicle, or my membership status at any point before placing me in restraints?" Crow's mouth opened, closed. No words came. Marcus nodded once, as though the silence had been answer enough. "I'm going to give you the same advice I give every young attorney who steps into my office for the first time. When you find yourself in a hole, the first rule is to stop digging." He turned to Reggie. "Reggie, please escort Officer Crow off club property. He is no longer welcome here." Reggie blinked, then nodded vigorously. Crow looked around, at the phone still trained on him, at the little girl wiping tears from her cheeks, at the man in linen shorts who somehow managed to look more imposing barefoot and bleeding than most people did in a 3-piece suit. He turned stiffly and walked back to his cruiser. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't need to. By the time Crow's taillights disappeared up the access road, the first version of the video was already uploading. Title: Police Officer Handcuffs Harvard Attorney at Yacht Club, for no reason. Watch what happens next. Within 47 minutes it had 1.2 million views. Within 3 hours it was national. And Officer Harlan Crow still had no idea that the real storm hadn't even started. The video didn't just go viral. It metastasized. By 9:47 p.m. that same Saturday, the original clip posted by @HarborView Witness, a 32-year-old hedge fund analyst's wife who'd been sipping rose on the Calypso, had been downloaded, re-uploaded, stitched, slowed down, zoomed in, annotated, and memed across every major platform. Twitter, still stubbornly called that by people over 40, exploded first. Then TikTok turned it into soundbite gold, when the police forget to Google before they cuff, set to dramatic violin stabs. Instagram Reels layered text overlays and furious read, "Harvard Law is not equal to Harvard hoodie." Still profiled in 2025. The hashtags arrived in waves. Hashtag Yacht Club Arrest. Hashtag Marcus Reed. Hashtag Harvard Handcuffs. Hashtag Officer Crow. Hashtag ACA Batsy. By midnight, cable news had picked it up. CNN ran a split screen. One half showed the grainy dock footage. The other showed a file photo of Marcus from a 2023 New York Times profile, sharp suit, thoughtful gaze. Caption reading: the quiet power broker behind progressive legal victories. MSNBC invited a civil rights attorney who'd once co-counseled with Marcus. She didn't mince words. This is textbook racial profiling overlaid with breathtaking incompetence. The officer didn't even ask for a name before escalating to physical restraint in front of a child. Fox ran it too, but with a different frame. Elite Yacht Club confrontation. Is cancel culture targeting cops now? Their guest, a retired police union president, called it a rush to judgment against an officer doing his job in a high-value environment. Neither side could agree on much, except that the clip was undeniable. Inside the Harborview Yacht Club's members-only lounge, the mood had shifted from stunned silence to something closer to war counsel. David Langston, owner of the Serendipity and Marcus's racquetball partner since law school days, paced in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the now dark water. "We sue," he said simply. "Not just the city. The officer personally. And we make sure every partner at every AmLaw 100 firm knows his name." Elena, still holding Maya, who had finally cried herself to sleep on the leather couch, shook her head. "Marcus decides. Not us." Marcus sat alone at the bar, an untouched club soda sweating in front of him. He'd changed into dry clothes from the boat, jeans, a plain gray t-shirt, but the red marks on his wrists hadn't faded. He kept turning his phone face down, then face up, watching the notification count climb. At 11:14 p.m. it hit 4.7 million views across platforms. His phone buzzed again. Not social media this time. The name on the screen read Chief Raymond Esposito. Marcus answered on the third ring. "Dr. Reed," the chief began, voice low and careful, the way people speak when they know they're on a recorded line even if they're not. "This is Chief Esposito, Harborview PD. I've been trying to reach you for the last hour." "I've been a little occupied," Marcus replied evenly. A long exhale on the other end. "I've spoken with Officer Crow. He's been placed on administrative leave pending full investigation. Effective immediately. That's a start. We'd like to meet with you. Tomorrow morning if possible. At your convenience. I'll come to you, your office, your home, wherever you feel comfortable." Marcus let the silence stretch just long enough to be uncomfortable. "Chief, with respect, I've spent 20 years teaching police departments how not to handle these situations. I know exactly how tomorrow morning goes. Sincere apologies, internal affairs promises, maybe an offer to make this right that stops short of anything enforceable. I'm not interested in theater." Esposito didn't argue. "Understood. Then tell me what you are interested in." Marcus looked across the lounge at Elena, who met his eyes and gave the smallest nod. Full, unredacted bodycam and dashcam footage from Officer Crow's unit. Every radio transmission from the moment he called in a suspicious person until he was ordered to release me. Written statements from every officer who responded or monitored the call. And I want the 911 call audio released publicly, no redactions, no delay, by noon tomorrow. Another pause. That's a tall order. It's the bare minimum required by law in this state under sunshine and police transparency statutes. You can either comply voluntarily, or my firm will file the public records request at 12:01 a.m. and the Section 1983 suit by Monday morning. Your choice. The chief cleared his throat. I'll have the materials to you by 10 a.m. Thank you. Marcus ended the call without waiting for more platitudes. He stood, crossed to Elena, and kissed the top of Maya's sleeping head. Let's go home, he said quietly. They left through the side exit to avoid the 3 news vans already parked at the main gate. Meanwhile, 8 miles away in a modest split-level house on the edge of the city's working-class west side, Officer Harlan Crow sat alone at his kitchen table. The television was on mute, but the crawl at the bottom of the screen said enough. Breaking, viral yacht club arrest video sparks outrage, officer on leave. His phone hadn't stopped vibrating since he walked through his own front door. Texts from the union rep, missed calls from his sergeant, voicemails from reporters who somehow already had his personal number. He'd turned the ringer off an hour ago. On the table in front of him lay his badge, his service weapon, unloaded, magazine beside it, and a single sheet of department letterhead he'd printed from the precinct email blast. Administrative leave notice, Officer Harlan Crow number 478. Effective immediately, pending internal affairs investigation. He stared at the paper for a long time. Then he opened his laptop, pulled up YouTube, and typed 3 words into the search bar. Marcus Reed, Harvard. The first result was a 2019 panel discussion from the Aspen Ideas Festival. Marcus, in a charcoal suit, speaking about systemic bias in policing. Calm. Precise. Devastating. Crow watched the first 9 minutes before he closed the laptop. For the first time since he'd stepped onto that dock 17 hours earlier, the story in his head, the one that had felt so solid, so instinctive, began to crack. And somewhere deep in the quiet house, the first thin thread of real fear started to pull. Monday morning arrived like a guillotine. The Harborview Police Department headquarters, a squat, brutalist concrete building that had looked dated even when it opened in 1982, now resembled the set of a breaking news live shot. Satellite trucks lined the curb, reporters in windbreakers clutching microphones like talismans, camera operators scanning for any officer foolish enough to walk past without sunglasses. A small but determined group of protesters had gathered on the sidewalk holding signs hand-lettered in Sharpie. End racial profiling. Harvard doesn't need handcuffs. Justice for Marcus Reed and everyone else. Inside the building, in a windowless conference room on the 3rd floor, Chief Raymond Esposito sat at the head of a long table flanked by the department's lawyer, the union president, Internal Affairs Lieutenant Vasquez, and, sitting ramrod straight in full uniform but without his badge, Officer Harlan Crow. Crow hadn't slept. His eyes were bloodshot, the skin beneath them bruised purple. He kept his hands folded on the table to hide the tremor. Esposito cleared his throat. We received the body cam and dash cam footage from Saturday evening. It's not helpful to our position. Crow didn't look up. He already knew. The footage was merciless. No audio issues, no convenient angle cuts. It captured every word, every escalation, the immediate assumption of guilt, the refusal to accept the membership explanation, the barked orders, the takedown in front of a child. The cuff snapping shut before any attempt to verify identity. Worst of all, it showed Crow's face clearly, jaw set, eyes narrowed in certainty, right up until Sergeant Mallory's voice came over the radio and the color drained from his cheeks. Lieutenant Vasquez slid a printed transcript across the table. We also have the 911 call you made. You described the subject as acting erratic before you even got out of the vehicle. No description of erratic behavior was ever articulated on scene. Crow finally spoke, voice hoarse. I saw a black male on a private dock in a high-value area. He didn't immediately identify himself as an owner. I made a judgment call. The union president leaned forward. Harlan, you're not on trial here. Not yet. But the city attorney's office is already in damage control mode. They're talking 7 figures minimum to make this disappear quietly. And that's before Reed's firm files anything. Esposito rubbed his temples. He hasn't filed yet. That's the only leverage we have. He's giving us 24 hours to do the right thing. His words. Crow looked up for the first time. What does that mean? It means he wants more than an apology and paid leave, Vasquez said flatly. He wants policy changes. Mandatory bias training with third-party oversight. A public review board with subpoena power over use of force incidents. And he wants your badge. The room went still. Crow's laugh was short, bitter. He wants me fired. He wants accountability, Esposito corrected. And right now, the mayor, the city council, and half the state legislature are on the phone asking why we're still employing an officer who handcuffed one of the most respected civil rights attorneys in the Northeast in front of his 7-year-old daughter on video. That's been viewed 23 million times. Crow stared at the table. I've got 18 years on. Pensions vested. I've never had a complaint like this. You've never had a viral video like this, the union president muttered. Silence again. Then Crow asked the question no one wanted to answer. What happens if I fight it? Esposito met his eyes. We'll defend you to the extent the collective bargaining agreement requires. But between you and me? The city will settle with Reed. They'll cut a check, implement the reforms, and offer you a quiet resignation with a severance package that keeps your pension intact. If you force a hearing, if this goes to arbitration or, God forbid, civil trial, they'll hang you out to dry to save the department. That's the calculus. Crow nodded slowly, as though the words were being carved into him. I need to think. You've got until end of day, Esposito said. After that, the mayor's office is going public with a statement. They're not waiting for us to decide. Crow stood. No one tried to stop him. He walked out of headquarters through the back loading dock to avoid the cameras. His pickup truck was still parked where he'd left it Saturday night. The driver's seat smelled faintly of fast food and old coffee. He drove. Not home. Not to the bar where the guys sometimes gathered after tough shifts. He drove to the one place he hadn't been in years, St. Michael's Catholic Church on the east side, where he'd been an altar boy until he was 16 and life got complicated. The church was empty at 11:20 a.m. on a Monday. Sunlight slanted through stained glass, painting the pews in reds and blues. Crow sat in the last row, elbows on knees, head bowed. He didn't pray. He just sat. And for the first time in his adult life, he let himself remember the day he decided to become a cop. His older brother Tommy, 2 years ahead in school, star quarterback, everyone's golden boy, had been pulled over on a dark road at 19. Routine traffic stop. Tail light out. Except the officer smelled marijuana, there was none, searched the car without consent, found nothing, but still wrote Tommy up for furtive movements and suspicious odor. Tommy spent the night in holding. The ticket was dismissed, but the humiliation never left. Crow had sworn then he would be the kind of cop who didn't do that. Who listened? Who gave people the benefit of the doubt? Somewhere along the 18 years, that promise had eroded. Not all at once. Grain by grain. Call after call. Suspicious person after suspicious person. Until the grain became a canyon. And now the canyon had a name. Marcus Reed. Crow pulled out his phone. The screen was cracked from when he dropped it on the dock Saturday. He opened YouTube. The top suggested video was still the Yacht Club footage, now at 27 million views. He didn't press play. Instead, he searched something else. Marcus Reed daughter Maya. The results were thin. Privacy had been respected so far, but one article from a local parenting blog 2 years earlier showed a photo, Marcus and a much younger Maya at a science fair, both grinning over a baking soda volcano. The caption read, "When your dad's a lawyer but still makes time for volcanoes." Crow stared at the picture until his eyes burned. Then he opened his email and started typing. Subject, Resignation, Officer Harlan Crow number 478. He didn't write much. Just the facts. Effective immediately. No pension demands. No severance request. Just one sentence at the end. I was wrong. I'm sorry. He hit send before he could second guess it. Then he turned the phone off, leaned back in the pew, and, for the first time in decades, let himself cry. Outside, the world kept spinning. The protests grew. The news trucks multiplied. The hashtags trended globally. But inside St. Michael's, in the quiet colored light, something ended. And something else, smaller, harder to name, began. 6 weeks later, the city council chambers in Harborview buzzed like a hive under siege. The room, usually reserved for mundane debates over zoning variances and pothole budgets, was packed shoulder to shoulder with reporters, activists, community leaders, and a smattering of yacht club members who looked distinctly out of place in their pressed khakis amid the crowd's t-shirts and protest buttons. The air conditioner strained against the October humidity, doing little to cool the rising tension. At the front podium stood Marcus Reed, impeccable in a navy suit tailored sharp enough to cut glass. No notes in hand. No teleprompter. Just him, the microphone, and a room full of eyes waiting for him to declare war or peace. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, voice steady as a metronome. 6 weeks ago, on a quiet Saturday evening, I was enjoying time with my family at a place I've called my second home for nearly a decade. That evening ended with me in handcuffs on a dock, in front of my wife and daughter, for the crime of being present while black. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed like distant lightning. I am not here today to recount the details. You've all seen the video. What you haven't seen is the aftermath. The nightmares my 7-year-old has about the bad policeman. The way my wife double-checks locks at night, not out of fear of intruders, but of uniforms. The emails and calls I've received from hundreds, thousands, of people sharing similar stories, from boardrooms to bodegas. He paused, letting the weight settle. Nor have you seen the resignation letter from Officer Harlan Crow, submitted 48 hours after the incident. In it, he acknowledged his mistake. He apologized. And he stepped down without contesting the internal review. Gasps from the back. This was new information. Marcus had kept the letter private until now. Reporters scribbled furiously. Phones were already pinging with breaking alerts. But accountability isn't just about one officer, Marcus continued. It's about systems. That's why, in partnership with the mayor's office and the police chief, we're announcing today the formation of the Harborview Accountability Commission. Independent oversight. Mandatory body cam audits. Bias training co-developed with civil rights experts. And a community review board with real power, not just advisory, but with subpoena authority over disciplinary proceedings. The mayor, standing off to the side in a sensible pantsuit, nodded vigorously. Chief Esposito, beside her, looked like a man who'd just survived a root canal without anesthetic. This isn't punishment, Marcus said. It's progress. Officer Crow's resignation closes one chapter. These reforms open the next. Because the goal isn't to end careers, it's to end the need for stories like mine. Applause erupted, starting slow then building to a roar. Questions flew from the press pool. Dr. Reed, will you sue? Is this enough? What about Officer Crow? Any comment on his future? Marcus raised a hand for quiet. No lawsuit at this time. We've reached a private settlement with the city for legal fees and a donation to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. As for Officer Crow, he hesitated, just a beat, the first crack in his poise. I wish him well in whatever comes next. Redemption isn't a zero-sum game. He stepped back from the podium, signaling the end. The mayor took over for the Q&A, but the room's energy stayed pinned on Marcus as he made his way to the side exit, Elena waiting with a small smile. Outside, in the corridor away from the scrum, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost let it go to voicemail, but something made him answer. Dr. Reed? This is Harlan Crow. Marcus stopped walking. Elena raised an eyebrow but gave him space. Officer Crow, Marcus said neutrally. Former officer, I suppose. A long breath on the other end. Yeah. Look, I saw the press conference streaming. I didn't expect you to say that. About redemption. I meant it. Another pause. I wanted to apologize. Not in a letter. To you directly. What I did, it wasn't just a mistake. It was wrong. I let assumptions blind me. And your daughter. God, I keep seeing her face. Marcus leaned against the wall, eyes closing briefly. Apology accepted. But understand, this isn't about forgiving you. It's about fixing what led to that moment. For Maya. For every kid who looks like her. I get that now. Crow's voice cracked slightly. I've been reading. Listening. Signed up for some classes at the community college. Sociology. Criminal justice reform. Figure if I'm out of the badge, maybe I can help from the other side. Marcus's surprise was genuine. That's a start. Yeah. Well. Thanks for taking the call. And tell your family I'm sorry. I will. The line went dead. Marcus pocketed the phone, staring at the floor for a moment. Elena touched his arm. Who was that? Crow. Her eyes widened. What did he want? To apologize. And maybe to change. She searched his face. You believe him? I believe people can. Whether he does, that's on him. They walked out together into the afternoon sun, where a small group of supporters waited with signs and cheers. Maya wasn't there. She was at school, drawing boats again, her sketches now including friendly policemen alongside the yachts. But across town, in a small apartment Harlan Crow had rented after selling the split level, divorce papers had followed the resignation like clockwork. The former officer sat at a desk piled with textbooks. A laptop screen glowed with an online course syllabus, implicit bias in law enforcement. He clicked enroll. The story of the yacht club arrest didn't end that day. It echoed in op-eds, in training videos, in quiet conversations between fathers and daughters. It became a case study at Harvard Law, taught by a guest lecturer who knew it all too well. But for Marcus Reed and Harlan Crow, the real ending was still being written, one cautious step at a time, in the messy space between justice and grace. And as the sun set over the harbor that evening, the docks of the yacht club lay quiet once more. But not unchanged. 1 year later, February 23, 2027. The wind off the Atlantic carried the sharp scent of salt and early spring promise as Marcus Reed guided Aguirre's wake out of Slip 42 at Harborview Yacht Club. The Hinckley picnic boat purred beneath his feet, engine smooth and low. Elena stood at the helm beside him, wind tugging at the edges of her scarf, while Maya, now 8 and fearless, leaned over the rail, pointing at a pod of dolphins arcing through the gray-green water 100 yards off the bow. Look, Dad. They're racing us. Marcus smiled, the kind of smile that had become easier in the last 12 months. Think we can beat them? No way, Maya laughed. They're faster. But maybe if we bribe them with fish. Elena chuckled and rested her head on his shoulder. You're negotiating with dolphins now? Lawyers got a lawyer, he said. They weren't alone on the water that Saturday. A small flotilla had formed behind them, David Serendipity, a handful of other club boats, even a sleek Boston whaler carrying a camera crew from a documentary production company that had been shadowing Marcus for months. The film was called Dockside Reckoning, and today marked the final shoot, a quiet family sail, no interviews, no confrontation, just life moving forward. Marcus had turned down every major network offer for an exclusive sit-down. He didn't need another viral moment. The story had already done its work. The Harborview Accountability Commission was no longer just a name on letterhead. It had teeth now, 3 high-profile disciplinary cases reviewed and resolved in public session over the past year, body cam policy rewritten statewide, and bias training curriculum adopted by 12 neighboring departments. The mayor had won re-election on a platform that prominently featured the reforms. Chief Esposito, to his credit, had stayed on and implemented every recommendation without foot-dragging. The Commission's first annual report, released 2 weeks earlier, showed a 41% drop in use-of-force complaints citywide. None of it erased what happened that August evening. But it made the scar tissue thinner. Marcus throttled back as they cleared the breakwater, letting the boat drift on the gentle swell. Maya scampered below to grab the binoculars. Elena slipped her hand into his. You okay? She asked softly. He nodded. Better than okay. She steadied his face. You've been quiet since we left the dock. Just thinking. He glanced toward the receding shoreline, where the yacht club's white clubhouse still gleamed against the pines. About how close we came to letting one bad moment define everything. It didn't, she said firmly. You didn't let it. He squeezed her hand. We didn't. A small silence passed, broken only by the slap of water against hull and Maya's excited voice calling out dolphin sightings. Then Marcus's phone buzzed in his pocket, once, twice. He pulled it out, expecting club business or a work email. The name on the screen made him pause. Harlan Crow. He showed the screen to Elena. She raised an eyebrow but didn't speak. Marcus answered on speaker so she could hear. Dr. Reed. The voice was steadier than it had been a year ago, but still carried the weight of someone who'd walked through fire and come out the other side singed. Harlan. I saw the documentary trailer drop this morning. Figured you'd be out on the water today. Didn't want to interrupt, but I wanted to say something before the premiere next month. Marcus waited. I've been working as a community liaison for a nonprofit here, police accountability training, mostly for smaller departments that can't afford big consultants. It's not glamorous. Pays about half what the force did. But it's honest work. A short, self-deprecating laugh. Turns out I'm pretty good at explaining why what I did was wrong. Go figure. Marcus let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That's good to hear. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted you to know I'm not hiding. Not running from it. Every training I do starts with the same slide, that Saturday at Harborview. Your face. Your daughter's. I don't edit it. I don't soften it. People need to see it exactly how it happened. Silence stretched across the water. Then Harlan said, quieter, I still dream about it sometimes. The cuffs. Maya's crying. But the dreams aren't as loud anymore. Marcus looked at Elena. She gave the smallest nod. I'm glad, Marcus said. And Harlan, thank you. For doing the work. For not disappearing. Didn't feel like I had a choice. You made sure of that. Another pause. Take care of your family, Dr. Reed. And enjoy the sail. You too, Harlan. Wherever you end up. The call ended. Marcus set the phone down on the console. Maya bounded back up, binoculars around her neck. Who was that, Daddy? An old friend, he said. Someone who's trying to make things better. Maya considered that, then shrugged in the way only children can. Cool. Can we go faster now? The Dolphins are winning. Marcus laughed, full, unguarded, and pushed the throttle forward. The boat rose onto plane, slicing cleanly through the waves, chasing silver flashes in the distance. Behind them the flotilla followed, a loose constellation of white holes under a wide February sky. On shore, in newsrooms and living rooms across the country, the trailer for Dockside Reckoning played on loop. Grainy footage of the arrest fading to slow-motion shots of Marcus lifting Maya onto his shoulders on the dock a year later, the two of them laughing as sunlight caught the water like diamonds. The final frame held just 2 lines of text. One mistake can change everything, So can one choice afterward. No names. No hashtags. Just the truth, simple and final.